controversial subjects with the facts can be tense, but we are a sub-science here to make things make sense.
Did you know that some British people call it migraines? Migraines.
You're lying.
I'm not lying. And apparently it's more correct.
Migraines.
Because it's based on like the French word that apparently like when we were all starting to talk about migraines, it was like a French concept. So,
So they're right.
ooh, they're probably right, but we're going to say migraines, okay?
Migraine. I mean, why not? You know, me.
Yeah. It's the most common brain disease in the world. I did not realize it was
That you have a brain
considered
disease.
a brain disease.
Yeah, so we obviously chose this episode because Greg gets migraines fairly often, or there's been times when I feel like you get them very often, and then you might go a while without having them.
Yeah, we're going to talk about it today.
I think that I have had some migraines in my life, but I definitely, for the most part, feel that I mostly get headaches. There's been times for sure though where I was like super light sensitive, but never to the degree where you kind of say like you might throw up sometimes, and it's like
And I get an
6
aura.
to 8 hours sometimes of you just like being in the complete dark.
Yeah.
Relaxing.
Like I definitely get migraines
Yeah.
based on like all this research. I'm like, this is the exact experience I go through. But I think that a lot of migraine scientists would be like, you maybe have never gone and talked about it with maybe you have healthcare professional, and you should. Because they were kind of like they were sort of like headaches. They're like, if you're ever getting headaches, you should go talk to your doctor. Like they were making
Ever?
Yeah, it was weird. Like so many of the studies I was reading.
If you ever get a headache, you should talk to your doctor.
If you get headaches,
Wait, why?
Because it's worth understanding if it is a migraine, and if it is, they now are having all this incredible research and science, and they kind of are like, you would just be helping to,
But to be
figure it
honest,
out.
I really am almost certain my headaches have to do with screen time and work, because when we are away, I don't get headaches nearly as much.
But that's
Unless I don't.
worth your practitioner knowing, and then like worth
maybe there's like something about it.
They want people to go and talk to their doctors about this, and in fact, all the things we're about to talk about, it's so underfunded, and what works for some people won't work for others. That is really something you should work out with your general practitioner or a doctor.
Okay.
And that's like a lot of them were just saying like, if you get headaches, like if you are someone who's like, oh, I get headaches, it's worth talking to them, because they can at least start to understand and know that you might be someone who suffers from migraine. Weirdly, migraine is the name of the disease.
Migraine, you mean?
Migraine's the name of the disease. The actual experience of it is called an attack. So I have migraine, but then I like...
You have migraine.
Yes.
That's how you say it?
You say, I have migraine.
No.
Yes. All the studies I was reading, the tense was like this.
You have migraine.
I have migraine. And then I have an attack.
Oh my.
And it's in 4 stages. So there's like the Pro-Dromal Phase, and then there's the aura, and then there's the actual attack or the headache, and then there's the Post-Dromal Phase. So it's like that all encompasses a migraine, but migraine's the name of like the disease that like I have.
Wow.
I know.
That
It's so
sounds
much more
hilarious.
intense than I thought.
have my partner has migraine.
I have migraine. Hello, I'm Greg. I have migraine.
Okay, before we like talk about why they happen and the science behind it, I think you should talk about what happens to you specifically.
Okay.
Just like your own experience that I think will explain to people who don't have
So
migraines,
funny.
because before I met you, I don't think I really knew anyone that had migraines, or maybe I did, but I didn't really like understand the depth to which it changes your life.
Yeah. So I have a disease
Called migraine. as we
called
just, like-
migraine. The first one I ever got, I remember it.
You remember?
Yeah, I remember. I was 17 years old, and I had just eaten a white chocolate macadamia nut cookie. And then I got the aura, and I was like,
So
okay,
what's the aura?
having an aneurysm. So the aura
In the version of like your experience, not necessarily
okay,
the
yeah, because
science
we'll talk about the science of the aura later. So the aura for me, which is a common one, is like if you look at the sun, which you should never do. Okay, that's a bad example.
Or a
Well,
light
actually,
bulb.
if
But
you
yeah,
look at the
everyone
sun
knows.
reflected off of a car, or you mistakenly look into like a strong light bulb, and then you look away and you see the like remnants of it in your eyes, it's like that appearing out of nowhere, and then it spreads to the side of your vision. Recently, mine have been these like C shapes of zigzags, which zigzags are really popular aura patterns, which is
super popular.
Everyone's
dying to get a zigzag aura.
no, it's so weird because when you read these things and you go through it, it's just so, I just don't know why I hadn't researched it before this week. Literally, they were saying
absolutely disturbed that you have never researched.
Well, because I feel like I know how they are for me, and so I'm like kind
You've,
of
like,
have them
just
under
dealt
control.
with it that way.
But the zigzags have been so clear in my auras in the last 2 years, and the fact that a lot of these studies talked about zigzags being really popular, I was like, holy shit, I felt seen.
Or rather, not seen because the zigzag was in the way.
So I also sometimes will just go completely blind on one side of my head. Or like one time we were downstairs and I'm like, where'd the TV go? I remember that was so scary. I was like, the TV's gone. And I was like,
that was one of the scariest.
That was the really bad.
Because you were like, I can't see.
I was like, the TV is gone. We're watching a movie and the TV just disappeared. Like the wall was gray. And I was like,
do I need to call a hospital?
And then I was like, I think
it came back slowly. But that was like, my experience of you having them is that you're always like, and we'll just be walking somewhere and he'll go, oh no. And then I get really scared because I think there's like something scary that's about to attack us. And then you'll go, it's happening. I got the glow.
And then I turn around and I walk back
to wherever. And he's like, okay, we have to get Tylenol because they have food and water. And like you go crazy. But then basically you like lock yourself in a room. It sounds from my perspective like the glow is actually not pain. It's just a visual sensation.
So the aura consistently happens an hour before the pain. Which it's very like consistent.
So at least it gives you that bit of warning to be like, you have 1 hour to get yourself somewhere.
Yeah.
Where you can settle.
But it's always hell because you're like, oh, wow, this day is now going to be me literally like crying. So the other thing I didn't realize is I vomit a lot. I like will barf.
Like you mean when you're having a migraine?
Yeah. And it's because they have realized that neurologically it actually what's happening in your brain connects to your vagus nerve and it causes people to throw up. Oh. So there's theories. One, the theory used to be that your body thinks you're dying and it's just trying to get the poison out of you. But more recent research has found that there's actually connections within your spinal cord and your brain that's hitting your vagus nerve. That's maybe like just making your body off. And I was like, oh my God, because I barf. Like I just barf.
I haven't really thought about how I have probably not barfed in like 15 years.
I mean, if I didn't suffer from migraine, I wouldn't either.
Like, it's so weird because when you're young, you kind of like barf all the time.
You barf a lot.
And you're just like, that's a normal existence to be like, I'm sick.
Because when you're young, you're like, no, it'd be fun. Spinning forever. And it's like, then you're barf because you're dizzy. And you're like, that's weird.
But don't you remember? I just feel like anytime I got sick and stayed home from school, I'd have like a barf bag beside me. And like at night, my mom would like put a little basket for like barfing.
Well, you more likely get flus when you're kids. You're so much more exposed. Yeah.
But it's just like that. And then university age, you're like drinking to the extreme,
you can
barfing.
Like not realize.
But after that, I'm just like, I think I stopped barfing after that. Even when I get sick, I've definitely felt queasy, and I hate barfing so much that there have been times when I probably could have, but I forced myself to hold it.
Yeah, I think when I'm barfing from my migraine, sometimes it's like a bit of like, if I really wanted to, I could keep it in. Like, for example, just got a migraine. That's why it made me think of this episode. And I was in a position where I couldn't just go barf somewhere. And I was like, okay, I'm not going to barf. Like when you're at home, it's one of those things where you're like, oh, I might as well try this because it might feel good.
Like a release. Yeah.
But then, so that's the aura. The aura is like a visual thing. But some people's auras can be tingling just like in their limbs. And some people stop being able to move half their body.
That's terrifying.
Isn't that crazy?
Isn't that also a sign of a stroke?
Well, yeah, but so is probably a lot of these things. Okay, so now let's get into the science because I feel like I can talk more about my experience with the science.
Obviously, with your experience, I just wanted to say that there's controversy through the years because people who don't experience migraines often just think it is a headache. Right? Like, I think I've heard that a lot of people with migraines don't always get sympathy because someone's like, just take some Advil or like, just lay down. And a migraine is like very different than a headache. And some people get migraines like many times
chronically. It sounds awful. Also, we're going to get into the sexism later, but it's predominantly happening in women. So a lot of the times these things are just men being like, oh, you're weak or like, oh, you're complaining. There's a lot of interesting
and
sexism mixed into lacks of research. Yes. We'll get to it.
Okay, so where do you want to start?
Okay, so
what the heck is a migraine?
So first of all, it is genetic. So it's a genetic disease.
So you can blame your parents.
Yes, if you are someone who has people in your family who have migraines, and you're like, oh, I don't know if I have migraines, but I have headaches all the time, and blah blah blah. Like maybe you do. So it's genetic. There's at least 42 genes that they've been able to find that make you more susceptible to having an attack. Okay. And so, for example, my mom gets migraines, my sister gets migraines, I get migraines. Like my dad doesn't. So it's like, okay, I obviously got it from my mom. But it's interesting because like when it happened when I was 17, yeah, I was like, I'm having a stroke. And then it was kind of like my sister being like, oh shit, you got it. Like my mom and sister
that was
being
you
like,
realizing like
you got it.
The disease
Yeah, the
passed to you.
disease, like you got the disease. So it is genetic. And then the way that it gets exacerbated is through like physical things that happen to your body. And so what they know happens is that in your midbrain, there's this triggering, which we'll get to. Something happens in your midbrain. All these nerves start firing off, and these
They said nerds. All these
freaking
just
nerds.
start going crazy.
Literally, though, like when I think of my neurons, like they are nerds. Like they're so specific and really good at one thing. These neurochemical pathways essentially go haywire, like they misfire, and they are you're more sensitive to this happening when you have this like disease.
Okay.
And so studies have been actually able to find and watch people's brains going through migraines, and they're just like, oh my god, everything is just going wrong. Like everything is just like truly just like neurochemically misfiring. And that is what causes all of the issues that we're going to be talking about. So they at least now have seen them and watched them happen and been like, okay, yeah, that's really bad.
Okay, yeah, because I had read that. So basically, people with migraines have a very irritable or excitable brain. So your cerebral cortex is hyperexcitable, and it said once the neurons start firing, like when they're not supposed to, they like trigger a wave of a cascade.
Yeah.
So it's almost like they're bumping into each other and triggering all the other ones to start misfiring.
It's literally
like a
what it
domino
feels
effect.
like. It's like, what is happening in your brain? You're just lying there like, why the hell am I having this stupid problem?
But then I think that's probably when you're having your aura, or probably when, because then it said that after that crazy wave, you have a wave of inactivity. And then that's when it says cortical spreading depression. What we call cortical spreading depression is that wave of inactivity. And that's when chemicals are released into your brain, which vasodilate everything. And like then the pain comes on.
Oh, God. I hate it.
And that they used to think it was just a problem of like blood vessels dilating, which is still believed to be part of it, but it feels like it's so much more complex now.
Oh my God. I actually want to barf. Like even just thinking of this, I'm like, oh God, I hate this so much.
And that it's important to note, it sounded like through my research that there's so many different pathways as part of migraines that people experience it very different, and different medications and whatever. Like it's so many different levels that it's just like really complicated. And my not that I get migraines, but if I did, like mine might be actually different than yours.
Yeah,
phases of it that
that's
are like,
why the aura thing was like, I felt so seen when it was like zigzag vision is very common. It was like, okay, I'm at least getting the normal ones. Like when I found out that people like some auras is that they can't move half their body, I was like, well,
I read sometimes they lose their speech. And that's
apparently people fumble over their words. Oh God. I mean, I might actually. No, I don't think I do.
No, right? I don't think you do. But I mean, you go into a dark room and don't talk to anyone. So
yeah, that's true.
Maybe you do.
Okay, so another thing that I thought was freaking fascinating is there's a pro-dromal phase. This is pre-aura. Some people who really understand their migraines can know that they're having this. This can happen 2 days before your migraine. That's obviously like, it's 2 days and up to hours before.
Okay.
So hours before it'd probably be way
like
easier to understand.
But
people get irritable, and the really common thing is yawning. People yawn a lot, and then they can sometimes be like, oh my God, it's coming. I'm like, that's crazy. Now that I know that, I want to be like,
aware.
am I yawning? People get really anxious, irritable, and then they crave carbs. And that is what has created a bunch of myths that chocolate or these things cause migraines. Because a lot of people have like been susceptible to craving carbs and like for whatever reason. And then it's part of this like post-dromal phase. So I honestly just thought it was aura, pain, done. But it's like, no, there's a pre-aura thing that some people, if you take a migraine journal or if you're really, really on top of this, unlike me who's never researched it, but like 4 times a year I like die. Some people can figure that out.
Hard retrospectively, like unless you're truly diarying every day and like putting it together.
But okay, so also a lot of the medications we're going to be talking about, including Botox and these interesting new scientific ideas, there are people who get chronic migraines, and a lot of the really intense stuff means you have to be getting them at least 14 days out of every month, which I was like, that is hell. Like I at least don't get that. I get like once every 3 months, which is a lot, I feel like, but these people have huge issues in their lives.
Gosh, yeah. You would be like, what's
Apparently they can't make plans with friends. It's really bad on mental health. There's been serious, like, it's really sad, like just takes of people whose lives are just like absolutely awful. And so it's a lot more common than we realize. 1 in 7 people have migraine. So it's like, you're not alone. But anyways,
do you know if, like, maybe you don't know this stat because I don't, if 1 in 7 people have it, does that mean like chronically, or does that mean
no
had a migraine?
1 in 7 people are like, when they go to their doctors and they talk about what they're going through, they get diagnosed with migraine. So one of the clear indications that you're suffering from migraine, and not something like cluster headaches or maybe like a random headache or you're hungover or something, like they were saying, a lot of people are like, oh, I had headaches when I've been drinking, and they're like, okay, is that when you are experiencing the actual attack, you are hypersensitive to smells, to sounds, and to light.
Right.
So it was so interesting when I was hearing about this, because the actual attack that I had recently, I was forced to be in public and I couldn't just like go into a small room. And okay, we were in an airport and I was alone, and I walked through the security, and when the first thing you do is get to that duty free, and there was like you
like
have to walk through perfume. I swear to God, like I've never, like now that I've done the research, I was like, oh my God, I walked into that bright lighting and it reeked of perfume. And I remember seeing Julia Roberts' face and wanting to flip a table. And like, I honestly remember seeing her face and being like, you stupid rich celebrity and your stupid smells. Like I wanted to push the screen. God. Like I was so triggered by it, and I didn't think about it, but after, I just remember having this like visceral moment when I saw Julia Roberts' face, and I was like, I hate this.
So angry.
And it's like, oh my God, I was so obviously sensitive to the smell. And I remember on the airplane when people were walking by, I was like, that perfume sucks. Like I was like, oh my God. So that's a really strong indication that it's a migraine, is any of those sensitivities are heightened. That's how they were like diagnosing it in a lot of these papers. Mm-hmm. That's a good thing to know.
To be separate from a headache where you're just like in pain in your head, like not necessarily. Although I would say sometimes my headaches do get affected. When I think I have a migraine is when moving my eyes hurts. Does that happen to you when you have a migraine?
Yeah. I don't want to move my eyes.
Like when I have a headache, my eye movement doesn't bother me so much. But the times I've felt like maybe I had a migraine is when even moving my head, but especially just like moving my eyes, even when they're closed, is like painful. Maybe that's unrelated though.
This is interesting, Mitch, because I am like, I have migraine. I'm like, you should, like, do you identify as having migraine? And would you now maybe want to go to a doctor and figure out what is happening? Because it's like, I understand mine so specifically, and the fact that I get an aura, because you don't necessarily have to get an aura, but the fact that I do, it's all so clear to me what's going on, because it's like, I'm watching this thing happen in my head, and then I'm getting this pain. Like going through how these migraines work, I'm so seen by this. But I'm like just curious, like, are you now like, oh no, do I have migraine, or am I just getting headaches? Like, what do you think?
I don't think I have migraine. I'm not saying it's not possible.
Do your parents have migraine?
Recently, we were talking to my family, and a lot of them, everyone in my family gets a lot of headaches. So maybe it's possible.
But none of them have got an aura or...
Nothing like what you get. No, I don't get an aura ever. But I definitely... I don't know, like, I've talked about it on the pod where there's times where I kind of have like that out of body, like foggy brain. Mm-hmm. But that's not always correlated with brain pain. Like there's two separate things. Like I think a lot of my headaches are just from like being tense, like stress headaches, and just like staring at a screen all day. Because when I'm away from my screen on vacation, like I get way less headaches. Either that and or if I don't eat properly. So it's days when I like wait too long. It's weirdly I can skip breakfast, but if I eat breakfast and then wait too long to eat again, I will be way more likely to get a headache. That won't go away.
That seems like a migraine.
But that seems like I'm not eating.
Oh.
Right? Like, and my body's like, you're hungry.
Okay, well, I would say based on a lot of these studies, I encourage you to go talk to your doctor about what your headaches are, where they're coming from. They're valid. Your headaches are valid.
Yeah, I know. Well, thanks for finally saying that. No, I think because I feel like I get headaches all the time, that I just feel like I am prone to them. And they're never as extreme as your migraines, so I don't think I get as much sympathy for them.
I don't get sympathy for my migraines. I just go in a room and
you get to just like take the day off work. Whereas when I have a
Okay,
headache,
now you're being weird. I'm like, wait, I'm trying to like, now you're like getting.
No, because when I have a headache, most of the time I can cure it with ibuprofen. But then I have anxious thoughts about my stomach bleeding because I take so much ibuprofen every week. So
Okay.
when I like go a week without taking ibuprofen, I'm like, that's a record.
Wow.
But then I have recently, like I try really hard. I'm like, can I handle this headache? Like I have a headache right now. Like before we started filming, I was like, I have a headache, but it's not a bad one. But I am like slightly dizzy, and it is like a rainy, cloudy day right now. So I'm like,
Yeah, I think you might have like your own versions of migraine. I don't know. I guess I can't.
It's possible.
Say that for you, but you should start thinking about all the triggers and thinking about like maybe, is there certain things happening that are always happening before I get a headache?
Yeah, I'll think about it. Something interesting about the glow, like obviously I've never had it and it's not everyone gets it, but you know how I said there's like this cascading effect that goes from one part of the brain to the other. They were saying that's why for a lot of people it will go from a glow because it's going through your visual cord, like sensory part, then it goes to like a part that affects people feeling tingly, like your physical sensation, and then for some people it goes to speech at the end, and it's because it's literally passing over your brain,
All the different parts of the brain regions.
and speaking of stroke, there is some data to suggest that people who have migraines with aura specifically, especially women, are at a slightly higher risk of stroke compared to the general population.
God damn.
But that risk, it says, is still very, very low.
Okay.
Like it's just marginally increased. And then it said migraines tend to be more progressive strokes than strokes. So, because it's like, how do you know then if you're having a stroke or a migraine? And the thing was like, when you have a migraine, it kind of comes on. Right? Like you see the aura, you know what's happening. It takes its time. Whereas a stroke is like suddenly.
Oh my God, I
stuff's
need to
happening.
know that because I'm always just like, this one's the stroke. And then
Well, it is
It's like,
scary,
no, 'cause it's
especially if you're at a
gradual.
high risk for that, or if you're older and it's more likely to happen.
so but that's good to know. My migraines are gradual.
Generally, like I don't want to like tell someone not to. If you think you're having a stroke, go to the hospital or go to your doctor. Like
Also, there's after the headache, which can last for anywhere from 4 to 72 hours, affects the vagus nerve. You can barf. Also, the headache causes gastric stasis, so that your stomach essentially stops absorbing food. That's why if you see the aura, it's really important to get your ibuprofen or any medication you want immediately, because your stomach will be
it's
absorbing
like not
it.
absorbing it
Because
the
once
same-
the pain starts, your stomach stops absorbing the gosh dang
because it thinks you're
medication.
like in flight or fight or something.
Yeah, like there's different theories about that, but they do know that you have gastric stasis during the pain. So that's another reason why it's good to always have your ibuprofen, your paracetamol, your like pain meds, because like right when you get the aura, you should take it because it's gonna not be
I'm so
absorbed.
curious, like how many people listening to this like are listening because they get migraines.
I know, 1 in 7.
Ugh,
That's the
probably.
stat.
I saw an interesting study on high school students. So you said you started getting it in high school.
I
right?
started getting mine in first year university. Is my
okay.
first one.
That's when I thought you said you were 17.
Yeah, I was 17 in first
No
year.
way.
I went because my birthday.
Oh my gosh, you're right.
It was
Wow.
the first week of university.
Oh my god, that's so scary.
I know, it was hell.
You're like, I'm alone and scared.
And
Wow.
also to this day, if I see a white macadamia nut, I want to go Ralph all over the like. If someone's like, "Oh, I made white macadamia nuts," I'm like, "No. That thing traumatized me." Is like I like associate it.
I
with
never
my
thought about
migraine.
how like the name Ralph just like has been
Ralph.
given this disgusting
Yeah.
like image.
Sorry, Ralph.
Okay, so the study I looked at was looking at students with migraines. It was a sample size of over 1,000. So they were looking at school start times. 500 of these kids had school start times before 8:30 and 500 had after 8:30. And basically what they found was that the before 8:30 group had 7.7 migraines per month on average. So these are obviously people who have like a lot of migraines.
Okay.
The after 8:30 group had 4.8 per month.
Wow.
So like a pretty significant decrease just based on they were also adjusting for total hours of sleep. And also things like taking preventative medication, days of acute medication, hours of homework, grade level, and missing
wow.
breakfast. It was like just about when they were starting school. Which I know I've done videos and talked about like why it's important that school should start later.
Yeah.
because it's like
there's
kids,
another one.
kids, especially teens at that age, like are naturally meant to stay up later and then sleep in more. But I thought that was interesting that maybe I'm sure you think about your sleep and how important it is with relation
Okay.
to your migraines.
So this was the most important research that I found because it was all about triggering migraines and why they're caused. So for me, I have through my doctor and very limited research, again, I have no idea why I haven't looked this up, have noticed that if I don't drink a lot of water, eat food consistently, or those are like actually the two ones I really go to. There's been some interesting stress ones. Like when I was a teacher, I was so stressed, and the second I would like get the holiday break, I would get a migraine and be like, well, I literally hate my life. And it was like, that's really weird. Why has this happened on every holiday? So what the general consensus is that this is all about homeostasis. So your body, whenever it leaves its homeostatic environment, so whenever you do something to make it so that your body has to change, is when a migraine can be triggered. So if you start with food, which is, I think for me, the clearest one, it's all about your blood sugar. So anytime your blood sugar spikes or your blood sugar is low, like a lot of people who have diabetes would be really aware of this. They were almost saying like you have to think about your life like that when you suffer from migraines. And that to me is the most obvious one. Like the other day when I got the migraine, I was like, I knew after doing this research, I was like, the night before I didn't eat very much dinner. I went to bed super early. I slept in, got up, had a coffee, we were at a weird place where I couldn't just like do what I usually do, which is immediately have my breakfast. Boom, I got a migraine because it was like around like 9:30 or something, and it had been maybe 13 hours. They were saying people who suffer from migraine shouldn't sleep in. If they want to, they should get up, have their breakfast at the same time, and go back to bed. Like you should.
Oh my gosh. So if you want to keep sleeping, eat first.
Eat first.
Go to.
They were
Wow.
literally like, if you want to take this seriously to decrease your migraines, you need to be having a snack before bed, and you need to be getting up, having your breakfast at the same time, and going back to bed if you want to sleep in. And then it keeps going down through all these things. Like for example, sleep. If you can keep your sleep, they said people who have migraine in general need quote unquote more sleep from their understanding of how it works. But it's really important that you get consistent amounts between like 6 to 8 hours. Mm-hmm. So when you think about that study of the kids with the later school start time, is probably just giving them that buffer of time to sleep in if they did for whatever reason not get to bed correctly the night before. It's giving them more time to keep their sleep schedule the same. And so they were like, that's another important thing. A lot of people who care about this go to bed at the same time every night, and they can't really play with that. And I noticed like I'm more like that than you. Like I'm more crazy about when I go to bed.
Well, it's weird because I like to obsess over sleep, but even that eating thing, like I can just like go without eating breakfast for sure. I do eat it because I'm like, if I'm going to go to the gym or something, I feel like I should eat something. But yeah, I've just noticed like it comes off in a way where I'm just like, oh, well, can't we just like go an hour late or whatever? But you're like, no, I need to get food and water and all these things like immediately.
And I kind of like always knew that about myself. It's weird how my body, like, it's like your body sometimes
Kinda
knows you better than you. Like I'm just like, I need it. Like I'm going to hate today if I don't. But it's also like, oh yeah, wait, I'm going to get a migraine if I don't.
I know. It's so weird how different our bodies are. And I think about that even in terms of hydration. Like you are obsessed with hydration, which is like totally fine and normal. And I've definitely become more aware of hydration like since being with you, which is like forever now. But I actually think your body needs more water.
Oh, it does. I peep Tropicana orange juice after drinking so much water.
And I'll just like have a glass of water and it all is clear. And I'm like, I'm clearly not absorbing any of this water.
Oh my God.
And then I have to pee like 700 million times.
I cry of joy when my water's clear, and it's like once a year.
Seriously?
Okay, so the other thing about that homeostasis thing is the stress piece. So some people will get it when they're stressed if they have lives that are pretty chill. And then a stressful thing happens, they get a migraine. Whereas I think what was happening to me and what also happens to a lot of people, I was very stressed when I was a teacher. If you have a stressful life and you finally relax, that's a change in homeostasis of your body from that sort of like just baseline like stress to all of a sudden, boom, you're relaxed and the migraine comes on. So it can be either or depending on like how your life is. Same with physical activity. It's like really important that people like essentially you don't overexert yourself and you don't like, and you also sort of like maintain a healthy sort of like body, because the healthier your body is, the easier it is for the homeostasis of it to sort of like work. And I remember last year I went on like the longest run I've ever went on. Do you remember this? I came upstairs.
You were like,
I came upstairs. I was like, you're not even gonna believe it. Like 12 kilometers in this time. And then I dropped my arms and was like, oh my God, I'm getting the glow. And I got a glow. Like I was like, oh my God, I've never overexerted myself to a glow. And a migraine, and that's part of it. Literally, they're like, you've changed your body so much, you've overexerted yourself, and then it made sense that I got a migraine then. So then the other things are carbohydrates. A lot of people who suffer from migraine really bad will go on low carb diets because the carbohydrates spike your blood sugar. And then the caffeine thing also is like, what it is that you shouldn't be drinking too much coffee in general. But it's like, if you ever don't get your coffee at the time that your body's used to getting it, then you get the migraine. And sometimes people pitch migraine relief as just like paracetamol with caffeine. And it's just under the assumption that that person probably needed a coffee and didn't get it. And there's just caffeine in there for it.
Weird.
And so it's all just about like, what is your routine? You need to keep your routine the same. And if you're going to change it, you have to be like, okay.
How can you change it then? Do you think you just have to do it gradual?
Gradual. And they also said that
no acute changes.
They're like, it's about thresholds from their understanding of migraine. So say that's why they're like, traveling's really bad. Because say you go and you're traveling and you're in a new time zone, all of a sudden now your sleep's disrupted. It's really important you try and eat really healthy and consistently, keep your coffee the same, keep every other aspect of your life as similar as you can, because you can't control the sleep right now. So it's sort of like trying to figure out all these bits and pieces. And they really think that migraines happen when a threshold has been crossed of too many of those things. And I was like, oh my God, this is all so helpful for me. I can't believe I didn't know we knew this much. Everyone always told me we didn't know anything. And then, okay.
Do you think go
sorry,
ahead.
I have one more helpful tip. This is just, again, send this to people you know who get migraines, because this episode will help them. And if you don't get migraines, you're so lucky, and I hope you're interested. If you do get migraines, there's a snowball analogy, which is about how if a snowball is rolling down a hill, the longer it takes to roll down the hill, the harder it's going to be to like push it over or move it. Yeah. So you should think about your migraine as a snowball. So the second you see the aura, you have to get on the medication on all of these things, because you need to like nip it in the butt.
It's like prevention.
Exactly.
Right.
And then we're going to get to like medications, but a lot of the medications, people wait until it gets really bad before they take one of the more intense ones. They're like, no, if you understand your post-dermal phase, if you're like getting irritated and yawning and you think it's coming, take the medication then.
Yeah.
Or if you,
and some people I think are on medication all the time for it.
Yeah. That's
like, I think I was
interesting.
reading about, targets a specific chemical called CGRP.
Yeah, everyone was talking about CGRP.
And that, so it's like, related to the inflammatory response, but that people who have lots of migraines would take it all the time. So you're like preventing that first stage from even happening.
So if you talk to your doctor, and again, about severity and just like what you want to do, some people will go on like low doses of anti-epilepsy medication, low doses of depression and anxiety medication.
Because they're like hitting those spots of the...
SSRIs. Like these things will help. They've found that these things help. And the reason it's important to talk to your doctor is that some people might be already on these medications because they have anxiety or depression. How can you work with your doctor and pharmacist to give yourself something that maybe will help with both of those conditions? Whereas say you don't have anxiety or depression, then that's going to change how they might use SSRIs or other things to help mitigate your migraines. But you would actually be taking them all the time. And it's important to be patient, because I think taking a new medication like that, it's going to take a long time to see a difference. So some people, I think, maybe do it for a month and give up, and it's like you have to do it longer. And they also found magnesium. I just bought magnesium supplements because apparently
I had seen a study about marijuana and migraine relief, but the general consensus is that it does help, but there's quickly like what do you say when you become used to the dose?
Yeah.
So like people who would use it would help their migraines, but eventually it would like taper out because their body would just be so used to it that didn't help.
That's so funny, because in the studies I was reading, they were like British studies, and they'd be like, well, if you go to the Canadians, they're all about marijuana. Like it's like they're different countries have different like overall perspectives, and because of like publicly funded like NHS in Britain, like, and they don't have legalized marijuana, they're like kind of not in that camp. Whereas a lot of the marijuana research is coming from Canada, which is interesting. And the other thing about the painkillers, the Tylenol, the Advil, the reason you need to talk to your doctor is that if you're taking that a lot, then it's not going to work when like you do have a migraine. So that's when it's like, maybe it is smarter to go on some of these other like triptans or different medications, so that also when you had a migraine, you can then continue to use Advil and Tylenol, which you might be overusing.
Yeah, and those are the things that I get scared of. I'm like, you shouldn't use those all the time because acetaminophen or Tylenol is not great for your liver, and ibuprofen or Advil is not great for your stomach.
I feel bad because I never think like that, and like sometimes I will just look at a car that's reflecting the sun and look away and be like aura, and then like pop like
Yeah, but it's not that
so
often.
much
I
Advil
think I
and
take more
Tylenol, and
Advil.
then be like, wait, I actually was just looking at like a light. Like
gotta-
that wasn't an aura. Like sometimes I'm like, Greg, you truly just need to chill out.
I don't think you take too much Advil or Tylenol.
And
And I
that-
actually think even though I don't get migraines, I think I take more than you.
Yeah, no, you do because you do have that. Like,
And I'm also like
anxiety part
so
where you're like
weak.
something's wrong, and
I'm
then
always
you're just
like, my muscle hurts. I need to like take more Advil.
no, you do take a lot. I'm always like, yeah, okay, take another one. Like, use the
Silly solutions.
And you're always like,
sometimes.
oh God, my stomach, and like popping Advil. I'm like, then don't like the Advil.
Well, I don't know. Sometimes you gotta. Which is the lesser of two evils?
No, I know that's fair. It is funny though. I do see you take it a lot. And you're always like, where's the Advil?
I like have taken so much that I know the kinds of Advil that bother my stomach more.
What?
Like
kinds?
liquid
Like
gel,
the-
liquid
oh.
gel Advils, I don't take unless I have to eat before I have them. Otherwise, I get a stomach ache.
Wow.
But there's like the little, just like regular pills that are just ibuprofen non-brand. Love those ones. Can pop them anytime.
Wow, the liquid gels are too much.
They're too much.
Okay, so Botox also now
Oh,
is
yeah.
working. And the funny thing is it's like kind of like the Viagra thing where like
Discovered by
it was
accident.
discovered by accident where people were like, why aren't they returning this medication? It gives you boners. The people who were getting Botox for their wrinkles were slowly being like,
My migraines are gone.
BTW, my migraines are getting better. And they were like, what? And that's what started this research. So it's like different types of Botox around your forehead, your neck, your temples. That has been shown. It was like 80% effective in one of the studies I was reading. So that's, again, for a lot of people with chronic, at least 14 days in the month is how you could get that funded through the NHS or like public funding, because it's like they're not going to do it for people who just like me who get it once every like 3 months.
Mm-hmm.
But like maybe I was like, I want Botox. There's also electrical impulses now. Sometimes they put electrical impulses on people's arms and it distracts the brain. And then their migraine goes away. Like there's so many things
so
like
simple.
happening. I know. There's so many. It's so crazy.
Look over here.
Literally. Look over here. Oh, like, I'm like so into this. I mean, obviously because I suffer from it, it's so interesting to me. But I just like thought there was no option and I just had to do my thing. And I'm just like, I want to try some of these now. I want to like figure it out.
You will. Anything else?
The first recorded migraine was 200 AD. Okay,
now you're just going to spit up
it was
like random
migraine
facts.
like a random Roman emperor.
200 AD.
Well, they were like, this random Roman emperor was like writing about like his experience, like, and they were like, historians are like, oh, that's a migraine, and it's kind of like, wait, what is this? Is this something that is innate to the human experience? You know what I mean?
I wonder
like
if,
why?
like Ernie gets migraines ever.
Yeah, so they were kind
even
of being
headaches.
like, if it's been around that long. And then what happened was during the Industrial Revolution and like sexism and like capitalism and all this stuff, people started to be like, oh no, it's just women complaining and just like our lifestyle has changed and women can't keep up. So like migraines don't exist. And like they've just been completely, that's when it's sort of like, before that, people were really sort of into headaches, and there's like a lot of like weird like rituals that people would do in culture to deal with what people think were the migraines everyone was suffering from. And then in the 1800s is when this sort of like sexist sort of like rhetoric that like it's all made up, it's not real, happened. And that's why there's a lot less funding and research about this crazy thing that affects so many people, because it predominantly affects women. And science only now is being like, okay, sorry, like you're right, women, this is a serious thing. We can see it happening in the brain. How do we now fix it?
Cool.
But yeah. Do you have anything else?
No, I went through everything.
Is there any?
I do
like,
actually have a headache right now.
Oh,
But it's not a migraine, not a migraine. I think it's just a headache.
But they're different for everyone.
And
so,
I'm not going to take Advil.
Yeah, don't take
I'm
Advil.
just going to lay down.
If you experience headaches with hypersensitivity and you think you have migraines, talk to
I'm
your
going to go talk to my doctor, okay?
Go talk to your doctor.
I love talking to my doctor. I
Yeah,
have no
there you go.
problem
You
with
can do it on like Zoom now or
that. I
whatever.
know. Love that.
Oh my God. I want to figure it out. Imagine I never got one again. Oh my God. I'm so excited.
I don't think you should think of it like that. Even like with my back pain, it's just about like learning how to manage it and improve it. But it's a better mentality to just know like you can make it better But
Yeah.
don't get upset when you inevitably get one again. If it's genetic, you're going to get it again.
Literally, there was one study I read that at the end, it was like, there's no such thing as curing this unless CRISPR-Cas9 gene editing in the future, we take these genes out of the human body. They're like, but that will never happen. Ding, bye. Like, that's how it went. I was like, okay, that is a good way of looking at it. Like, it's a genetic disorder, so it's not going to go away. Okay. Well, thanks for listening. Reach out with your migraine issues. I would seriously love to read them. Like, any migraines that you get or ways that you get them, like, send them to me on Instagram. Like, I will read it like a gosh dang novel.
All right. We'll see you and hear you. You'll hear us next week. Bye.
Purse.